$176,000. That is what the typical Toronto renter will hand a landlord over the next 5 years for a 2-bedroom property that is rented at the average, which is $29.39 a month. And right now, the whole city is telling you, do it, renting is cheaper. Just wait, the market's a mess. And on a pure monthly basis, they're right. Renting is cheaper this year. Rents are actually down. So why am I telling you that that's the most expensive, cheap thing in the city? Because cheaper per month and better for you are not the same thing. And I'm going to show you the math. I've been doing this for 15 years, and I've always explained this simply to my clients with a framework. And I call it the 3 buckets. And it clarifies the rent versus buy dilemma. And then what we're going to do after I go through the buckets is we're going to go over the numbers because we want to be objective here. So we'll also go over the 2 times renting actually wins, because sometimes it does. So here's the framework. Every single dollar you spend on housing, renter or owner, it doesn't matter, this money falls into one of 3 buckets. So bucket 1, the money that's gone, vanished. You will never see it again. For an owner, that's interest on the mortgage, the property tax, the condo fees, the insurance, the maintenance. For a renter, it's the rent and tenant's insurance. And so the rent, obviously all of it, is gone. So 100% of your rent is bucket 1. That's the whole point of renting. You pay for shelter, but you keep nothing. Bucket 2, that's the money that comes back to you. This is the principal on a mortgage, the part of every payment that pays down what you owe. And it's a forced savings account you're not allowed to skip. A renter has no bucket 2. There is no version of renting where part of that check comes back to them. Now, bucket 3 is the money the asset grows on its own. So if the place goes up in value, that's yours, right? So that's leverage. A renter's bucket 3, once again, is nothing. So if you look at what we just did there, a renter's entire housing life is 1 bucket, which is the gone one. An owner takes the same kind of money and splits it across all 3. So same activity, putting a roof over your head, completely different destination for the dollars. And so this does not mean owning is cheaper month to month, because it isn't. Owning costs more per month than renting the same house. I'm about to show you how it will cost about $1,400 more. But the magic isn't in the monthly number. It's where the money goes. By the way, if you're new here, I'm Karl. My team and I have helped over 340 families buy or sell across the GTA. And a lot of them were standing exactly where you are. You might be a professional. You might be renting. First-time buyer. Homeowner looking to move up. If anything in this video catches you where you're thinking, wow, maybe I should reach out to Karl to help us with our move, there is a link in the description or bio, and we can arrange to grab a coffee whenever it's convenient for you. So let's pour these numbers into the 3 buckets. So let's start with renting. And 2026 is the best year to rent in a long time. Everything I'm going to quote here is going to be the average asking rent for the GTA. So your pocket of the city, it could be higher, it could be lower. A 1-bedroom in the GTA averages about $22.50 a month right now, which is down about 4% from last year. A 2-bedroom is around $2,939. So rents are falling because the city is getting flooded with rentals, newly built condos that a lot of people weren't planning to live in. If you remember my condo crash video and all of those empty units that became rentals, well, it's great news if you're signing a new lease this month. But for calculations point, what we're going to do in this example is we're going to call it $29.39 a month. Over 1 year, that's $35,000. So over 5 years, the length of a mortgage term, that is $176,000. And so in this scenario, every single dollar of it is bucket 1, gone. That's just the deal, right? Renting buys you shelter and flexibility, and it buys your landlord a property. Now the other door, instead of renting a property, you buy the same kind of property. And I'm going to use a $1 million property as an example. So in this scenario, we are going with $1 million purchase price. We're assuming 10% down, which is $100,000. We're going to go with a 4% rate for the calculation. And the mortgage is going to run just under $5,000 a month. We're also adding property tax into it, property tax of $4,000. And so you're at about $5,200 a month to own. $5,200 to own versus probably the same house, $3,800 to rent. Owning costs about $1,400 a month more. But we're not going to stop there because we never asked the only question that matters. Of that $5,200, how much actually disappeared? Of that $4,900 mortgage payment, about $3,100 is in interest in years 1 to 5. So that's bucket 1 gone. The other $1,800 a month is going towards principal. So that's bucket 2. That's not a cost. That's you paying yourself into a savings account you physically cannot skip, right? So that's forced every month. So let's add up what each person actually wastes. So the money that leaves and never comes back. So the renter, that whole $3,800 is wasted. It serves a purpose, but for this calculation, it's wasted. The owner, $3,100 in interest plus $333 in tax, about $3,450 is wasted. So the more expensive option, the one that costs $1,400 more in the bill, actually throws away less money than renting. The owner is paying more, but they're losing less because the gap isn't a cost. It's $1,800 a month of forced savings with your name on the door. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Everything I just showed you was years 1 through 5, but nobody buys a house and stops the clock at 5. So let's run the tape forward. Years 6 through 10. Let's assume that rents increase by 10% over the next 5 years. Now what you're going to see is that the mortgage starts to flip. Early on, most of your payment of your mortgage is towards interest, right? Gone money. But with every month, a little bit more goes to you. And so by year 6 to 10, more of your payment is building equity, not feeding the bank. So over those 5 years, the renter will burn another $240,000 and keep none of it. The owner will waste $168,000, but they're also building $146,000 in equity doing it. Now, stack all 10 years, and it's not close. The renters burned $470,000 to rent a place. The owner spent less in true cost, and they're sitting on $250,000 in equity. Same house, same 10 years. One, unfortunately, would leave with nothing if they had to leave the home. The other built $260,000 in equity. And so the gap doesn't stay flat with time, it widens. And so rent rises while your interest falls on your mortgage payments. So the longer you stay, the more lopsided it gets. Time is the renter's enemy and the owner's best friend. And this isn't even factoring in equity you could earn if the market were to recover. And that is what is bucket 3. So bucket 3 is appreciation, the place going up in value. So if that $1 million house grows just 5% in a year, that's $30,000 of value on a $100,000 down payment. And so that's leverage. But it's important to understand that bucket 3 can go negative as well. We literally just watched GTA properties fall in price for the past 4 years. So prices don't only go up. So if you're a very risk-averse person, just treat it as a bonus then, bucket 3. It's not the plan. Long term, I think you'll find it very fruitful, but the plan is prioritizing buckets 1 and 2. Stop wasting money on rent. Start forced saving your principal. So if the asset grows on top of that, amazing. If it's flat for 2 years and you're still building equity every month while the renter builds nothing, that is the case for buying, right? And that's why also prices don't need to moon for it to make sense. So I've had clients use equity from owning a home to cover them when one of their parents got sick. They were in a very bad spot. One of the parents that owned the home, they had children, got sick and they had to stop working. And so they had young kids. Luckily, they had been in their home for 10 years. So they pulled out enough money to live on for the year, where the father was able to get the treatment they needed, get healthy, and his family didn't have to stress. I've seen the power of equity with others. I've seen it, others retire and use it to fund their lifestyle, right? Their golden years. I've seen others use it to pay for their kids' university or college. So home ownership, it gives you options. Renting, yes, it can serve a purpose, but it only gives you flexibility and affordability. at the expense of wealth building. And so the key is making sure you can afford what you buy. A lot of the people that got into financial trouble recently got extremely low pandemic interest rates. They went max budget and they lived beyond their means. So when rates went up, they had to sell. You're going to be smarter because you watch my videos and you're educating yourself. And by the way, I appreciate you watching this far and all the nice comments that typically people who watch this far make. It means a lot to me. I really appreciate it. Now, I promised you the other side to this equation, the pro-renting. And there are two situations where renting is the smarter move. And if any of these is you, then keep renting and feel good about it. Now, it goes without saying, if you don't have the money to buy and you don't have a down payment, then yes, obviously you're going to be renting, right? That makes sense. Let's talk about the 3-year rule. So if there's any real chance that you move in the next 3 years, right, that you're not going to be in a place for more than 3 years, rent. Buying and selling has costs like the land transfer tax, lawyer fees, real estate fees. In Toronto specifically, the land transfer tax is brutal because you pay it twice. One to the city, one to the province. So first-time buyers, they get a rebate that softens it big time, but still, if you're not staying put for at least 3 years, you won't be in a home long enough to out-earn those costs. So if you have a short timeline, I think renting wins almost all the time. No argument there. Number 2 is the disciplined investor. So if you're the kind of person who will take the difference between renting and owning and actually invest in it, every month make investments into the market and you're skilled at that, then yeah, renting can compete. Be honest with yourself, almost nobody does this. The reason buying builds wealth for normal people, for families, is that the savings are forced. The renter who swears they'll invest the difference usually, they spend it on dinners and entertainment. It's not a bad environment to upgrade or buy your first property in a good area. And here's how you can actually fund that jump. I did a video last week about the housing ladder. So watch that one. But renting in 2026, it's cheap, it's easy. It is 100% bucket one, money gone. Buying in 2026 costs you more a month than renting, but it's actually yours on a discounted asset. And you get access to buckets 2 and 3. Renting isn't throwing away money because it's expensive. It's actually cheap right now, but it's throwing away money because 100% of it goes into the gone bucket and never comes back to you. When you're owning, yes, you're paying a bit more, but you're paying yourself. And right now, homes are on sale. And so the people telling you to just keep renting, they're not lying. They're looking just at it from one bucket's lens. But now you can see all 3. If you found this video helpful, like it, subscribe, follow, send it to a friend who's thinking about buying this year. And if you'd like to chat with me, there's a link in the bio. Until next time, thanks for watching.